Today for our Stock Spotlight, we're joined by Angelo Zino, Senior Equity Analyst at CFRA Research. We must discuss all things Uber and losing this London license, Angelo. It doesn't come as a surprise to many, but some of the details are really disturbing. And when they have all of these drivers driving around that are uninsured, I saw more than 14,000 trips of uninsured drivers. I mean, that is problematic, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, when we start looking at this, I mean, clearly London regulators have had an issue with the safety standards brought up by Uber. This isn't the first case we've seen clearly out of London. I mean, less than 3 years ago, we saw an incident also coming from London regulators having an issue with Uber's app. And, again, this is, it seems like we continue to have issues here, specifically in that region. I think the more concerning aspect of all this is, hey, listen, London's kind of a top two market for Uber outside of the U.S. It makes up, we believe, about 4% of their revenue. And, our view is ultimately they'll be able to work with regulators here to kind of get themselves to continue to operate in the region. But that being said, I mean, I think the concern for investors out there continue to be on the regulatory side of things and whether or not we can kind of see a trickle effect in other regions of the world.
Well, that's exactly the point, too. I mean, there's a couple of things. First of all, they have 21 days to appeal, right? So they'll go through this and have a hemming and hawing back and forth with London and see if this happens. It really is their largest market in Europe. And to your point, 3-4% of total gross bookings, which isn't huge. But the trickle part is really problematic because if you start to have a chain reaction and other countries start to really look in that would be bad, right? How bad would that be?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think this is the key here, right? So when we look at Uber here, about a quarter of the revenue comes from the top 5 biggest markets out there. And, specifically, I mean, not only are we talking about the case here with London, but we can even talk about the AB5 situation, that transpired in California and the potential trickle, effect that can come from that across different states across the U.S. So, again, regulatory risk is clearly an issue here for Uber investors. We do think most of that is clearly baked into the shares. In fact, our view is as we go into 2020, we think a lot of these regulatory risks are actually a little bit overblown, to be honest with you. We actually don't think a lot of these issues will kind of trickle down into other regions. And we actually do think at the end of the day, a lot of these regulatory issues are actually going to make going to bring the spotlight to Uber and allow them to address a lot of these issues and ultimately kind of give them a better app ecosystem in nature. So, I think at the end of the day, we're talking about growing pains here. Relatively kind of high growth company in its early days.
I saw Loop Capital has a buy on both Uber and Lyft, but today raising the price target on Lyft. Do you like one more than the other? Do you recommend buying any of these? You said that maybe the worries are overblown.
Yeah, I mean, our view is, investors would be better suited in the near term in a company like Lyft. Our view has been when we kind of look at the dynamics and kind of the fundamentals of both companies, the area you do want to be more exposed to is the U.S. market, and you also do want to be more exposed to the ride-sharing market, which is really kind of the area where both Uber and Lyft will see, improving profitability. So if you kind of think about that really kind of, a pure play on Lyft, that being kind of the U.S. as well as ride-sharing market. In terms of Uber, listen, again, this is a tough situation for them. But at the end of the day, I think, what's also a little bit concerning about this situation is if we're talking about London here, which is a key market for them, this is also kind of directed towards that ride-sharing area of the industry. So Uber continuously talking about, potential EBITDA profitability by 2021. It's unlikely they get there if they can't operate in London, given that it is such a key market for them.
Right. Okay, so we'll watch both of them. Angelo Zino, great job. And of course, Kalanick's selling off about half of his shares, too. Senior Equity Analyst at CFRA Research. Thank you, Angelo, so much.